Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. In today's episode, we've got a lineup full of malicious compliance stories, from workplace pettiness and relationship standoffs to retro tech brilliance. You'll hear how one customer's demand to honor the contract backfired spectacularly, how one tired spouse turned the tables using her husband's own excuse, and how a programmer in the 1980s pulled off one of the most creative compliance moves I've ever heard. It's a little chaotic, a little petty, and very satisfying. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Matt Hatter 1337. Want your contract upheld? Okay. About 2 years ago, I had a customer complain that we had raised the price of his phone contract. I work for one of the main UK mobile phone companies here as a customer service rep. I've had my fair share of terrible customers and ridiculous requests, but this was the straw that broke my back. So every year, we have a price increase in March. It's the rate of inflation as published in November, plus 3.9%. This is in all contracts. Has been for as long as I've worked there. Every year, we send a letter out in February to let people know. And every year, we get calls asking, what the F is this? Most of the time, I deal with these fairly well. I explain they agreed to it in their contract, and occasionally read the exact part of said contract. What makes it more delicious is if they've bought it in store, they have a physical copy. So I ask, do you see where you signed your name in the box that says, I have read and understand the terms and conditions of the contract? Well, just above there, the box above that says, I understand that as of March, the price will increase by the rate of CPI plus 3.9%. And normally, that ends those arguments. Well, one day, I'd spent all day dealing with these calls, and I get a guy call. Let's call him Kevin. He complains about the price increase, saying how he never agreed to it in his contract, that his contract says it's, let's say, £30. And that's what he agreed to. No more, no less. He would never agree to something where the price was going to change. After the normal back and forth of explaining it, how all companies do it, not just us, petrol, food shops, books, everything, but he was having none of it. Around about the time most people accept and give up, he was still going strong, going in loops, repeating the same argument I've shot down already. At one point he says he never read it, so it shouldn't apply. I asked him, sir, if you don't read the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit sign and do 70 miles per hour there, you will still get stopped by the police. Just because you didn't read it doesn't mean it's not correct. Besides, you signed the box saying that you had read it, so I'm afraid you were aware of it. Now, that was perhaps me allowing my emotions to get in the way, but he did not like that at all. He said if he doesn't get the contract reverted to what he agreed, he would cancel his direct debit and see us in court. Cue malicious compliance. I noticed earlier during the conversation that his contract was actually £60 and that his first 3 months were half price. But the agent who added the discount added an undated 50% discount instead of the 3-month discount that auto removes. Well, given the call was an hour long and I was overdue my break, I finally said, okay sir, on this occasion, I am willing to waive the price increase for you and revert your plan to its original agreed upon price. Because I can't stop the increase, I will add a discount of his increase here to the line. And as you've stated, you want your plan to be put back to what you agreed to. So the 50% discount you have has now been removed. The plan is back to £60. He tries to talk, but don't worry sir, we won't be making you repay the backdated discount from the last 12 months. That's not how it works here, so I can confirm that your plan will remain at the agreed price of £60. After a stunned silence, he recovers and asks, what do I mean £60? I explained that he agreed to a contract at £60 per month, with 3 months half price, but that the wrong 50% discount had in fact been added and had been left on longer than was intended. He told me to leave it alone, not do anything, but it was too late. He had already confirmed he wanted it, and even if he hadn't, we have a system in place to report excessive or incorrect discounts, which I would have been reporting him on. But this was much more enjoyable. In the end, it was escalated to the manager, who stuck by my actions to remove the incorrect discount, and, in fact, removed my discount for the CPI as its policy not to discount these. It went above her to the executive complaints team, who I followed up with and noticed he was given a letter of deadlock that he could try taking to the regulators. It felt great. The guy had an incredibly poor attitude, spoke to me like I was his to do with as he wanted, and wanted to spit his day out in a tantrum. I claimed the victory in the name of those who work in a role with direct customer interactions, where they've treated you like nothing, and we're truly horrible people. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Blaze007. It says, "What a crap company thinking CPI plus 4% more every year is reasonable. Malicious compliance was fine, but there's a reason everyone is calling in pissed off." I've worked in a few call centers, and it's really disappointing that you can't say to the customer, "It's not my job to read your contract to you. You signed it. Deal with it." So many people call in irate trying to get a lower price, and that's really not the way to do it. So my advice, even if you're upset with whatever company you're calling into, put a smile on your face and be nice to the person on the other end of the phone, because they've had a crappy day already, dealing with people yelling at them all day. If you're that nice person and you treat them with respect, they'll do whatever they can for you. This story comes to us from Snickerdoodle's Rule: Malicious Compliance in response to weaponized incompetence. Okay, I'm new to the page. I want to hear all of your stories or moments of malicious compliance in marriage. Mine is when I asked my husband to move money from another shared bank account to our checking for bills. You guessed it, he didn't move the money. This was the third time that he forgot about it, and I was tired of asking. I watched our checking account go into the negatives with overdraft fees. I confronted him, and he said that I didn't tell him which account, but we only have one main account for both of us to pay bills from. The account is connected to our debit cards. The next day, he went for lunch at Chipotle. As he was checking out, he realized that he didn't have cash or money on his debit card. He called me at least 5 times, asking me to transfer money, since I was near the bank that day. I did transfer money, but not to the account with the debit card, because he didn't say which account. We haven't had any problems with him transferring money since. Opie added a quick edit at the bottom. It says, "Edit, we share all of our bank accounts. I crunch the numbers and can't always be responsible for budgeting and going to the bank and doing transfers." Jumping to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Timmy the Fourth. It says, "Good on you. Those kind of BS excuses drive me bonkers. Spouses need to live up to their responsibilities or get a dose of their own medicine." Opie responded and said, "Drives me insane." Is anybody else like me and still hung up on the part of this story where they actually had to go into the bank to transfer funds from one account to another? I can't remember the last time I went into a bank to do that, because everything's been online for as long as I can remember. Even my 75-year-old parents do all of their banking online these days, so age isn't an excuse here. Anyway, OP, if hubby's just not pulling his weight financially and getting things where they need to be, make sure all of his bills are just coming out of his own account. That way, when he forgets to move money around, it'll be his services that get cut off and not yours. Before we get into the next story, I've got a quick word from me. That's right, this episode is proudly sponsored by my 3D printing shop, dangly3d.com, where I make awesome stuff like Carmen Chameleon, who's always clutching his chocolate chip cookie like it's the last snack on earth. And yes, I've told you before, if you subscribe, Carmen might just share his cookie with you. But let's be honest, he's a greedy little lizard. So if you want one of your own, you'll have to head over to dangly3d.com and adopt him. We've also got articulated dragons, fidget clickers, keychains. Basically, if it's fun and 3D printed, it's probably hanging out on my site. Go check it out, support the channel, and get something cool. Now, back to the stories. This story comes to us from No Madness, bucking a software trend in 1980. 45 years ago, I spent a few months as a software engineer for a Midwest company that built industrial control systems, writing assembler for an embedded micro. Management had gone to a seminar on structured design, the latest software trend, and got religion. My manager, Jerry, called me into his office and asked to see my work. He was not a programmer, but sure, whatever, here you go. I handed him my listing, about a half-inch thick, and forgot all about it. A few days later, he called me into his office, which always reeked of cigarette smoke. "You've got some work to do," he snapped, furious. I looked down at his desk, and my 8085 macro assembler listing was heavily annotated in red pencil, with every jump instruction circled. "This is now a go-to-less shop. You've got to get these out of here." "Jerry, this is assembler code. That's different from high-level language." "I don't want a bunch of gosh darn excuses. You have 2 weeks. "Well, shoot. This is ridiculous." I stared at the code for a while, then got a flash of inspiration and set to work. Every place there was a jump, conditional or unconditional, I put the target address into the HL register, did an SPHL to copy it to the stack pointer, then did a return followed by a form feed and a title block describing the new module. The flow of control was absolutely unchanged, although with a few extra instructions, it was marginally slower. The machine was controlling giant industrial batching equipment, so that wouldn't matter. I dropped the listing, now almost 2 inches thick, onto Jerry's desk and went home. He would either spot the joke and respond with anger, or, hopefully, be convinced that I had magically converted the program into a proper structured design application. Some of those title blocks were pretty fanciful. He bought it. Suddenly, I was an expert software engineer versed in Jordan and Constantine principles, and the application made it into distribution. Around the same time, I quit to working full-time on my engineering textbook and other fun projects, and forgot all about it. Until 3 years later, when I was pedaling across the United States on a computerized recumbent bicycle. I got a message from a new employee of the company who was charged with maintenance of the legacy system, and he was trying to make sense of my listing. I called him back from a payphone in Texas. He sounded bewildered. "Did you write this? What are you, I don't understand, what are you actually doing here?" "Ah, there's only one thing you have to know," I said, then went on to relate the tale of Jerry and the structured design hack. By the end, he was practically rolling on the floor, and told me they had long since fired that guy. He now shared my secret about virtual software modules, and promised not to tell. But it's been almost half a century, so I guess it's okay now. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called ReasonableFeed9805. It says, "Gone on a seminar, come back with religion." Man, I like that. I've tried so many times to find a simple way of explaining that when we've had Manglement go somewhere and come back fixated on a new strategy they clearly must implement, but where the actual reasoning and working principles behind it are totally lost on them. That's my new phrase right there. Another commenter down below that I think a lot of us can sympathize with is called Peppermint Biscuit, and they said, "I understood none of the details, but enjoyed it very much. Management is the same everywhere." Okay, I have to admit that the first time I read this story, I didn't understand it myself. But the long story short is, boss went to a retreat, boss was told a new way to do things, boss said that was the only way to do things, and OP had to change his programming to match what the boss wanted. So OP complied in a way that made it do the exact same thing. This story comes to us from, and I'm sorry if I butcher this, Baihi Kipian? Do it your way? Okay. I work in healthcare, taking care of clients at a residential facility. Upper management thought we were going through too many trash bags, so they put them in a locked cabinet, and we had to ask the LVN to give us X amount for each shift. But that isn't the issue. You see, when it's my turn to add new bags, I like to do it at the start of my shift. There's little to no trash, and it's easy to put a new bag on top of the old one, and it'll be quick and easy to take the trash out at the end of the shift. One of my coworkers had an issue with this though. When I asked the LVN on shift for bags one day, they were still doing a lot of end of shift paperwork. My coworker told me, no, you have to do the other chores first. And the LVN decided not to get the bags for me, which meant when I finally got to the trash, they were all filled with something or other, and I had to wrestle with them. Because PM shift likes to tie the bags around the garbage lid hinge. Irritating as heck, but fine. We'll do it your way. The NOC shift likes to use grocery bags on some of the smaller trash cans too. So yesterday I'm working and the same coworker tells me they put grocery bags on some of the cans and that I only needed 6 bags and to give an extra one to client 4's room. We have 12 trash cans and they only put out 5 bags. So I listened to them and put bags in most of the cans. Anyways, at the end of the shift, one can was without a bag, and AM shift was unhappy with us. My coworkers tried to blame me, and I reminded them that I followed coworkers' instructions. Then, they started arguing with each other on if client 4's room needed 2 bags or not. Not the best story, but I wanted to get it off my chest. OP added an edit down at the bottom. It says, edit to clarify, there are 4 roles. At any point during shift, role 1 puts a new trash bag in the trash can. At the end of shift, role 1 and role 2 take out the trash. Since a new bag was already underneath it, we don't have to put another bag in during the end of shift rush. We do it this way because the end of shift duties are chaotic and clients are waking up and require attention. I only prefer to do it at the start instead of middle shift, so I'm struggling to take out and put back in a half bag full of trash, and I don't want to dig out the old trash and put in the new bag like my coworkers do. We're gloved, but I still don't want to dig out trash that might have medical waste. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Electronic Amphibian 7. It says, wait, so you put bags on top of the trash bags? Is there trash in them? And then when your shift is closing, you just take out the bags and trash from your shift and leave the other bags that already had trash in them underneath? Or do you leave the double bags of trash for the next shift? Or are you just taking care of the trash when it doesn't need to and wasting bags and putting the burden onto the next shift? Exactly what is happening here? I don't see how you're in the right either way. OP responded and said, no, if there's trash in it, I still take it out and put the new bag under. I do it at the start of shift, so the likelihood of it already having trash is minimal. If I wait until the middle of shift like my coworkers, the trash is usually half full, and trying to untie the bag and wrestle with the weird wrap lid is an issue, and I'm not a fan of digging the trash out and putting it in a new bag like my coworkers are. Then, at the end of shift, we go around and take the full bags of trash out to the bins. Since we already put new bags in earlier in the night, we don't have to put the new bag in while we're rushing to finish the end of shift duties. Okay, in case anybody is still a little bit lost on this one like I kinda was, OP is frustrated because they're trying to be efficient, but their coworkers keep getting in the way and causing confusion. That's basically the whole story. This story comes to us from Designer Coach 4890. Don't annoy me and ask for a 5-star rating. This happened in the 90s when no one had caller ID. My friend Jenny, female, about 35, was a stay-at-home mom, and her husband Walter, male, about 40, worked long hours commuting by train to the big city. Walter owned a BMW and dropped it off for service early morning at the dealership that was close to his train station. The dealership gave him a ride to the station. That evening, Walter picked up the car and returned home. No problem, right? The nightmare began days later. The first call came from whatever marketing company BMW had hired to conduct their surveys. Jenny answered, but they wouldn't accept her feedback, wanting only to speak to Walter. Jenny requested they call back in the evening to speak with him. That night, when they called, Walter was tired and didn't want to deal with it, so he asked Jenny to tell them he wasn't going to respond. They replied that they would call again another time. The phone calls came multiple times a week for over a month asking to speak with Walter, but he refused to answer. Jenny begged the first marketing company to stop calling, and then Walter to just answer their survey. This was driving her crazy. Jenny swears they called no fewer than 30 times. Finally, Jenny went down to the dealership to ask them to stop the phone calls. The lady at the desk was a bit snippy and said she couldn't help. Luckily, Jenny noticed a very large sign requesting that customers who were not going to give a 5-star rating to call and speak to the GM. The next time the survey call came asking for Walter, Jenny replied, "Speaking." Survey woman said, "I'm calling for Walter." Jenny says, "That's me." Survey woman says, "I'm calling for Walter." Jenny says, "Are you making fun of my name?" Survey woman says, "Oh, no, of course not." The survey was given, and Jenny didn't give them anything higher than 3 stars on any question. Is this malicious compliance? I hope so. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called FirmPage4451. It says, "Brilliant. I pretended to be my wife once to end a subscription with a UK supermarket delivery firm. Clearly, I know enough to pass the ID checks. Poor chap on the phone queried whether I was actually a woman in a polite way. I challenged back saying, 'Are you saying I don't sound as you expected?'" Another commenter down below called Paul DNAP said, "Well done. I think more people need to be malicious with the endless quest for feedback and validation that seems to rot everything you do these days. The part of the charade I despise the most is when they ask you for a rating on 1 to 10 and then follow it with a text box. Please explain why you gave that rating. I often say, you asked a question, and that was my answer." You know, funnily enough on this last comment here, I probably shouldn't admit this, but sometimes when I get a survey, I purposely mark the score down just a little bit because I'm annoyed that I had to do your survey. Before you asked me to do that, I would have rated your service a 10, but now because I had to fill out your stupid survey, it's a 7. And that's where we'll end things today, with a marketing team getting exactly what they asked for and a very tired wife giving them way fewer than 5 stars. Honestly, after 30 phone calls, they're lucky she didn't give them a 0. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed the episode, consider leaving a comment, a like, or a review. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss tomorrow's stories. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.